Welcome back to the Andrew Tate Show by GSMC Sports. In the first segment, we talked about speculation of Dak Prescott going to the Miami Dolphins. In segment 2, we were talking about the recently released college football playoff schedule and how we are looking forward to that. And now, as we go into segment 3, I do want to remind you that we do get a lot of questions during the We do get a lot of questions during the show. If you go to gsmcpodcast.net, you can leave a tip or a donation that will enable you to get your question at the top of our list, ensuring that we see it. Again, that is gsmcpodcast.net. It's another way for you to support the show and the network. Moving into segment 3, within the SEC, there is growing advocacy for Duke's illustrious basketball program to become part of the SEC, the conference. This proposal, however, suggests that only the basketball team would make this move, while the rest of Duke's athletic programs would join another conference. This idea is generating significant buzz and speculation about the future of college sports alignments. Duke basketball is one of the most storied programs in NCAA history under the leadership of legendary Coach Mike Krzyzewski. Thank you. You know what? That's Polish, and I should have known that. I just read it phonetically. Thank you. The Blue Devils have amassed 5 national championships and numerous conference titles, known for its intense rivalries, particularly with North Carolina, and its consistent presence in the NCAA tournament. Duke basketball is a powerhouse that commands respect and attention. The SEC is already a formidable conference in college sports, particularly in football. However, adding Duke basketball would significantly bolster its basketball credentials. The SEC, while strong in many sports, has historically lagged behind the ACC and the Big Ten in basketball prestige. The inclusion of Duke would instantly elevate the SEC's status in college basketball, attracting more media attention, higher television ratings, and potentially more lucrative sponsorship deals. For Duke, joining the SEC Basketball League could provide several advantages. The SEC's substantial media rights deals and financial stability would ensure that Duke's basketball continues to thrive economically. Moreover, the high level of competition within the SEC could further enhance Duke's recruiting appeal and the overall quality of its basketball program. However, this proposal is not without its challenges and concerns. Splitting Duke's athletic programs between two conferences could create logistical headaches and complicate scheduling and travel arrangements. The rest of Duke's sports teams would have to adjust to a new conference, which could disrupt established routines and rivalries. Additionally, the cultural fit between Duke, known for its academic rigor and traditional ACC rivalries, and the SEC, with its distinct regional flavor and focus on football, might pose integration challenges. The identity and branding of Duke basketball are deeply intertwined with the ACC, and moving to the SEC could alter that dynamic in unpredictable ways. If Duke basketball were to join the SEC, it could trigger a series of realignments across college sports. Other conferences might seek to bolster their ranks by targeting prominent programs, leading to a domino effect of schools changing affiliations. This potential upheaval underscores the shifting priorities in college sports, where financial incentives and media rights increasingly drive decisions. Advocates within the SEC argue that Duke's addition would benefit the conference as a whole, not just in basketball, but enhancing the overall brand and prestige of SEC athletics. They point out that bringing in a basketball powerhouse like Duke would attract top talent and generate more competitive excitement throughout the season. As discussions continue, it's clear that the potential for Duke basketball to join the SEC is more than just an idea. It's a reflection of the dynamic and rapidly evolving nature of college athletics. Both the SEC and Duke will need to carefully weigh the benefits and challenges of such a move, considering not only the financial and competitive aspects, but also the cultural and logistical implications. Tate, what do you think? Should just basketball move to the SEC, and where should the other sports go?
So this kind of comes from all the speculation of what's going to happen to the ACC. And to bring everyone up to speed, which if you've been watching the show, you probably have heard enough of this. Florida State is suing to get out of the out of the ACC. So is Clemson. And there's a lot of speculation that North Carolina, who is not happy, wants out of the ACC. If that happens, there's speculation that the ACC would collapse. In that particular case, what would happen to some of these teams. And so there's been a lot of speculation. Okay, Miami would most likely go to the Big Ten. People speculate that Florida State would either end up in the SEC or the Big Ten. North Carolina could go to either or as well. But then there's speculation like, okay, what happens to schools such as Virginia Tech, Pittsburgh, Syracuse? There's a lot of speculation those schools would end up in the Big 12. But when you look at the ACC, everyone talks about that Duke, North Carolina, and what would happen. And so the whole speculation would be if North Carolina went to the SEC, then the SEC would want a Duke. Maybe not for their football program, but they would definitely want them for their basketball program. The SEC is, in my opinion, way behind the other conferences. I think it would go. The Big 12 is the biggest, the best, and when it comes to basketball, followed by the ACC, the Big East, the Big Ten, then the SEC. And adding schools like North Carolina and Duke would be a big deal. Making sure it also makes great sense because of the fact that if something like that was to happen and the ACC was to go away, one thing you'd want is you wouldn't want that ACC ACC rivalry of Duke, North Carolina to go away. And the best way to preserve that would be to bring North Carolina in on all schools, but bring Duke in for basketball because you still would want that North Carolina Duke game every single year. I think if North Carolina ended, I put North Carolina and Duke as a package deal anyway. If, let's say, North Carolina decided to go to the Big Ten, don't be surprised if Duke is a perfect fit to go to the Big Ten. So those two schools are kind of connected at the hip, kind of like USC and UCLA. They both ended up going to the Big Ten. Cal and Stanford, they both ended up in the ACC once the Pac-12 collapsed. Well, Duke, North Carolina is one of those relationships where I couldn't picture Duke and North Carolina not together any longer. I couldn't picture a Cal and Stanford not together, or a USC, UCLA not together any longer. So some schools are kind of like packaged together. One of the questions that's have come up though is North Carolina and North Carolina State, are they packaged together? And that whole Tobacco Row area where it's Duke, North Carolina, Wake Forest, NC State, that's one of the things that, like conference realignment, that I worry about that being blown up, because those four schools have always been connected together. But in this world of conference realignment where basketball hasn't been at the forefront, college football is at the forefront, some of those traditional rivalries are going to fall apart. But people thinking about one of the biggest of them all, the Duke North Carolina one, protecting that's one of the reasons why a lot of the speculation comes up. If North Carolina goes, Duke has to go with them. And so that's kind of the way I see it. I hope this doesn't happen. I don't want to see the ACC go away as much as I did not want to see the Pac-12 go away. But if it does happen, it's going to be real interesting on where some of these schools fall in. I could see a situation where Duke and Clemson and Florida State and Florida State, Clemson, and North Carolina all look at possibly leaving the ACC, especially that Florida State, Clemson. But I'm hoping that Duke and North Carolina, they stay in the ACC.
So what do you think about this idea of just one sport from a school going to a different conference? I can see as you read through the reasonings behind it in that article, I can understand that. But if this were to become a trend, wouldn't that just be incredibly confusing and disruptive if more schools started doing this and were in multiple conferences?
Well, it's kind of that way right now, where you look at Washington State and Oregon State, because of the Pac-12 being blown up, they're going to be playing football in the Mountain West, and I think it's the Pacific Coast Conference they're going to play all their other sports in. You look at Notre Dame. Notre Dame is an independent, and they play an independent football schedule, but all of their other sports are all in the ACC. So it's not 100% something that's never been done. With the way things are going, that is a solution that I wish more teams would kind of consider. Is what's good for football may not be good for your school. You know, maybe, for instance, having one school where football is important, maybe going to one of those Power 2 conferences, but everyone else, does it really benefit USC baseball and gymnastics to be playing in the Big Ten and going to Rutgers for an event, which is in New York, or playing in the Midwest? Football-wise, it makes sense that USC and UCLA and Oregon and Washington are playing in the Big Ten. But for the rest of their programs, the travel isn't what's best for the school, the students, or the players. Breaking it up that way can actually benefit. So,
well, I feel like I'm repeating myself as though I've already said this in this episode. Change is constant in college football. College sports.
In college football, college sports is just gotten to be absolutely a madhouse.
It's going to keep you in topics. That's all I do. So,
absolutely.
Time for our third break. When we come back, still sticking with competition, we'll be talking about Nathan's famous hot dog eating contest and some recent drama. You are tuned into the Andrew Tate Show by GSMC Sports, and we will be right back.